also the 30-second delay, which I've never been able to figure out, but whatever. Okay, there we go. All right, guys. Um, I'll edit the YouTube VOD to be like cut here in a second. I just want to get things up and running. Um, hello. It is the final Nox Talks ever, unless I find something that I really, really, really suddenly want to talk about for League in the future, which I'm gonna be honest is probably not likely. So we're gonna get one last final Nox Talks out. For those of you who are wanting to tune in live, appreciate it. Thank you. I don't plan on this being much more than probably 30 to 40 minutes. I'm just yapping, giving my personal thoughts and opinions on things. Nothing overly important, but I thought it would be interesting to kind of just talk about my experience doing the show over the past 4.5 years. That isn't necessarily like, because I would like to dedicate the final show on November 17th to being like more positive and overall like happy vibes. This is kind of, if I'm gonna be honest, more me like complaining and bitching, just because I think it's something that kind of stuff that kind of needs to be said, and just for people to kind of like think about as well. And again, my thoughts are not overly important. I'm practically a nobody in the space, right? But still stuff that I want to say. So with that said, let me little spoiler alert there. Welcome to NoxTalks, the last Yappening. Topic number one that I would like to go over is a quick recap again of why the show is ending. And again, I'm going to try and go through this as quick as possible because I kind of remember this in the video that Sandy edited for us, which thank you again, by the way, for that, Sandy. Although you suck for the little blooper at the end. So why is the show ending? Over the past year and a half, I've just generally lost interest in kind of following the scene and specifically following FlyQuest. And the FlyQuest segment I'm going to get into a bit later. That's probably actually going to be the last topic because there's been a lot of frustrations that I've had with FlyQuest over the past year and a half or so, 2 years. But I'll save that the best for the last. With that said, I just wanted to say that I just don't have the same level of interest in following the scene anymore. I don't have the time to follow it anymore. Just it's kind of simple as that. When you don't have the time for things anymore, and you don't get to be able, you're not able to dedicate the time to follow the scene and actually study why things are happening and who's doing what and who's good and so on and so forth. A lot of that for me, my personal interest, that was kind of the reason why I wanted to be in the scene at all, is because I liked following those things. And if I don't have the time to do those things anymore, then yeah. So anyway, that's kind of the recap. Kind of touching on it a little bit. Deep dives analytics of the game and how I feel like I'm no longer able to provide good insight. When I first started the show, some of you will remember that I had a show that was basically like week in radar-ish, and it was like me doing analytics and kind of like, hey, here's how I think the team will play, here's what you should expect in draft, here's who you should be expecting the team to target in like games, so on and so forth. Like I love doing that kind of stuff, right? And I love thinking about it and that kind of fun analytical stuff. I felt though over the past year and a half that because I've been able to dedicate less time to watching the games, I started not necessarily like making stuff up, but like I was getting most of my research from like second sources or third sources and so on and so forth. I'd see like what other people were saying online, on Twitter, on Discord, and just kind of getting a general consensus. And then I would still watch highlights of the games, and I would kind of like mix that in with what my personal thoughts were based off the highlights. But the highlights don't give you like proper like, hey, here's what this guy was actually doing in game. Like I don't know. It felt like I was starting to just kind of be like a Reddit analyst a little bit, and I mean, there's a bajillion Reddit analysts. What is one more who just happens to have a little YouTube Twitch show gonna do? Like that's not adding anything to the scene. And so if I'm not actually adding anything of worth and note, it just felt bad to me. I didn't like just regurgitating information is what it kind of felt like to me. And so I wanted to be able to provide information that I felt was truly my own thoughts and my own opinions. That's not what it felt like it was happening. And so it got worse and worse over the past year and a half because I spent less and less time actually watching the games. And it got to the point where, especially this year, I mean, I would watch the FlyQuest games, but I don't think outside of maybe probably 6 or 7 of FlyQuest games this year, I don't think I actually watched a single one in whole. I pretty much watched highlights on every single one of them, and it's also hard to be a fan that way too, right? If you're not able to actually sit down and watch like the full games. So yeah, I just I don't feel like I was contributing anything actually interesting. And part of the reason why I wanted to do the show and why I even started getting into the scene in the very beginning at all period was like I wanted to contribute interesting information. With that said, moving on to number 3, something else I kind of wanted to talk about a little bit is my missteps in handling flight check. For those of you who don't know, and who maybe don't even know who this is, but Dunk was the social media manager for TSM. And for those of you who aren't really aware, I took an internship underneath him. I did a 6 week long internship with Dunk, going over social media and community management, and I think it was like team management was the third one, but I didn't really pay attention to those too much because I was never going to be in LA ever, right? Um, so I took like a 6 week long internship with Dunk. I had another one with Emily. Let me actually see if I can pull up her Twitter really quick. Emily, where are you at? Is it M. Murray? Yeah, Emery Lowell. She used to be like an NACL director. She did all the open qualifiers. I had like another 3 week long internship with her, and she also taught me a whole bunch of stuff. Um, oh, hey, she's in Dallas now. But yeah, basically, I had like 9 weeks of classes and internships with these people who were very smart, knew what they were doing in the esports scene, taught me a whole bunch of stuff, and it was like all because I really wanted to see what I could push with flight check, and possibly, and I'll get into this a little bit later too. This is another one of the bullet points, but I was also trying to get like an actual job in the esports scene. And I kind of did for a little while. I was actually refereeing for the open qualifiers for a little bit, but that's besides the point. Grassy Dew. Hello, Nox. Why do you have Curly's profile picture? Anyway, yeah. So long story short is I went through all these classes because I wanted to see what I could do to push flight check forward and actually get it on the map and get it like somewhat notable and be like, hey, we are the FlyQuest fan podcast. Like we create content, we discuss the games. Okay, I figured it was you, Curly, but I wasn't sure because for whatever reason you were Grassy Dew. I don't know if that's your like YouTube handle or what, but okay, that makes sense. Um, but yeah, I did all this because I wanted to see if I could push flight check forward and see what I could actually get the brand like actually big and notable and be like, this is the FlyQuest fan podcast, so on and so forth. And then I never applied any of it. I just never ever applied any of it. I got taught, hey, you should make thumbnails. That helps capture the attention of people on YouTube. You should do all the links on YouTube and Twitter. Like you should do hashtags. You should do all this stuff basically to spread the word of like, hey, you're creating content. Here's your content. Yada yada. Boom 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 boom. And I never did. It's frustrating to say because I had the tools. I absolutely had the tools, and I think part of me had, if I had ever actually taken the time to do those things, I maybe would still have the drive to continue doing the show even today because there's part of me that like really likes the climb of trying to build something a little bit. But I never even started the process. I just didn't try. I didn't get off the starting line, and I feel like that's a massive oopsies on my part because it is what it is. But at the same time, you also have to consider like I also never really wanted to get the show to the point where it's like I felt like a job because I feel like if you start getting like that like somewhat notoriety like in the social media sphere, um, there's a lot of just drama that comes with that kind of stuff, right? And it becomes stressful, and like I never wanted flight check to become stressful, and it never did become stressful, right? But kind of speaking on social media a little bit, Twitter. I hate Twitter. I despise Twitter. Um, there's a couple different reasons for this. One, and not to get too political here, but I'm not a fan of Elon Musk. I think he's a horrible person, and I don't really want to support anything that man's a part of, in which case Twitter happens to be that because he happened to buy Twitter. To give you an idea, just for shits and giggles, I have still never updated the app on my phone. It is still the old Twitter logo. And part of the problem that comes with that also is that eventually, for the longest time, I was still able to use Twitter, and it was what kind of kept me connected to the scene and like getting an understanding of what people think and whatnot. But eventually, one day, I think this was back in, I can't even see what the oldest tweet was, but I want to say it was like back in May or June. Um, I learned that, or not that I learned. I basically like the app stopped working, and I stopped being on Twitter. Which there's a couple things that happened with that. One, I'm not even joking. My mental skyrocketed. I felt way better being off Twitter. Like I wasn't seeing what people were seeing all the time. There weren't people giving like horrible takes or being bad actors. I just felt better being off of Twitter. It was crazy how good my mental was being off of Twitter. Um, Two, though, is it also did separate me from people in the league scene and those who were talking about the game and talking about players, talking about teams. That was a whole resource of mine that just poof, gone. Because the only time I could access Twitter was if I was ever on a computer, and I'm not on a computer that often. Like I'm on a computer at work, but I'm not on Twitter at work. And then I'm on a computer when I'm doing the show at home, which is for about an hour and a half, 2 hours. And even then, like that's me doing the show. I'm focusing on other things. I'm reading Reddit threads to like catch up on the stuff. I'm watching YouTube VODs because I didn't have time to actually watch the games. So I'm not even really on Twitter. I'm not scrolling Twitter to catch up on stuff. I've probably been on a total of maybe 2 hours of Twitter over the past like 5 months. I don't get on Twitter anymore. I'm my account's practically dead. Like I will retweet all the stuff that Sandy posts on the Flight Check account just to maybe get some traction, and that's about it. Um, yeah, so just I I I extremely dislike Twitter. I don't think there's a lot of good people on that app, and I think unfortunately it sucks because I see so many people in like the FlyQuest Discord who maybe also not the best way of asking or talking about it, but like I've seen a lot of people like you should be on Blue Sky or you should be on this or you should get off Twitter because you're supporting Elon Musk. Yeah, yeah, yeah. They're super like naggy, just like the way they're talking about it is not the correct way to go about doing it. But it also doesn't change the fact that I kind of agree with them. Like esports needs to move away from Twitter and needs to kind of move elsewhere. But the problem is like if it moves elsewhere, you still bring the people from Twitter there, and then you just start the cycle again. So I don't know what the solution is there. I think that's just a social media problem in general. Um, but yeah, I feel like a lot of social media nowadays is just awful, bad, yada yada. And I'm just sounding like an old man that's ranting off his high horse right now. But just my mental went up being off of Twitter and other social medias, but I also lost my connection to where most of the people were talking about the games and all the information, and that was part of another reason why I lost a lot of interest in the scene and in league in general, because I wasn't seeing that stuff every day. And so I'm like, do I want to hit Reddit real quick? Yeah, I'm kind of on the topic. So okay, we'll come back to five here in a second. But number six is Reddit. Um, Reddit is probably the one thing that I continue to use consistently because I got to stay connected in one way or another, right? I'm not saying it's the best news source or anything, but it was also pretty much my one main connection outside of Discord that allowed me to stay connected with the league scene. And there's a major problem with that. The mods, and y'all have known, y'all have known my history with the Reddit moderators of the league subreddit. Um, those mods are horrible. Straight up, there's no bullshitting them. There's no sugarcoating. There's just those mods suck. They're bad. Um, or I guess I don't know if they're the same mods as they were back then, but the mods back then were straight up bad. I think nowadays possibly the mods that are there now are probably just following the rules that were set into place back then. But I just straight up I unironically believe that the Reddit moderators during the era of like 2015 2015 to like 2020 actually helped kneecap the scene for the North American League of Legends scene. I true, honest to God, believe that because they would constantly remove posts that had discussions on things. They would basically allow no self promo, so basically you had no reason for fans to continue to want to get involved because they wanted to create their own content. Um, and then also it's this awkward blurry line of like, is this league subreddit meant to be for LoL esports or is it meant to be for the game of League of Legends? In which case they try and blend it so you can do both, but like really what ends up happening is like if anything esports related is happening, it completely suffocates talking about the game in any way, shape, or form. And then like basically no one actually talks about the game. There's no content being created really. It's just like LoL esports, LoL esports, LoL esports. Like I feel like what should have happened is there should have been two different subreddits. And there is technically two different subreddits, but the LoL esports subreddit is dead. Um, yeah, Nox were lost in self promo. Actually, unironically, yeah, lost due to self promo. But there should have been two different subreddits because the discussions that happen on that subreddit are not quality ever. Um, and I feel like it's very very hard for people to kind of grow fandoms and whatnot because right like how do you grow fandoms right now? I like you do it via Twitter, which David Shynock kind of did a little bit, but he certainly didn't do it on Reddit, which I feel like is the easier option if mods were to allow it to happen. Um, and then you can kind of do it via Discord, but Discord is so segmented that it's hard to actually grow it at all. I don't know how you go about like creating a community and how you create a fandom and how you get like sub pockets of like fans of certain teams and just I really feel like that's what Reddit should have been. I feel like that's what Reddit used to be back in the day. It's just not anymore, right? Um, so yeah, I'm very frustrated with how the league subreddit has been handled, and you see people complaining on Twitter all like, I know Loyota's complained about it, trying to get his content on the subreddit. I know Chakrez especially, because he like did LEC stuff and he did his own content. He got constantly dinged for self promo. Um, I don't understand how people can actually manage to do it. Like Travis Gafford especially also was super frustrated all the time. In which case he got away with it because he was in the scene from the very beginning before the league subreddit really cracked down on those rules. But like anyone else new trying to do it, like it was impossible. It was completely impossible. And so I really feel like the actual fandom of League for North American LCS could have been so much bigger if the League subreddit had been so much more lax on the rules. Um, so yeah, I really maybe I'm overemphasizing it a little bit too much, but I really feel like the subreddit not allowing that kind of stuff to happen just completely hacked what could have been. I really feel like the North American League of Legends scene could have been far better than it did. Like, obviously, Riot did a lot to damage the North American League of Legends scene. I think we could have been in a better place today if Reddit had been far more lenient on what was getting posted back in the 2015 to 2020 era. Maybe that's a hot take. I don't know. Yeah. Kind of wrapping back to number 5 really quick. Uh, I kind of went over this, so I'll make it fast. I just don't play League, period. The last time I played, like, I played a couple Summoner's Rift games last year. I think I played like 4. But I haven't even touched a ranked game since Season 7. That's how long it's been. It's been Season 7 since I played a ranked game. I've probably played maybe a total of 20 ARAMs over the course of this year. That's like far and away the lowest I've ever played, period. Um, even my like TFT this year, I, I've I've hard dropped off TFT. I think I played it a lot in the very beginning of this year. I forget what set it was, but the one in early winter of 2025, I hit Emerald on that. I just haven't played. Period. Like I haven't touched ranked in the past 2 sets. I'm not. The point is I'm not playing games, and when I'm not playing games, I'm not connected. If I'm not connected, I'm not interested, and if I'm not interested, like why am I trying to create content about it, right? So yeah. Um, Anyway, I think that's kind of all the general stuff that I wanted to go over for just my lack of interest in doing the show going forward. like my passions just died down, and that's just overall the reason why I feel like I am ready to sunset the show and go forward. Um, I really do want to emphasize that I know Sandy was probably the one guy, and I know he's really pissed off at FlyQuest right now, and I get it. But Sandy really, I think, deep down, I haven't really asked him about it, but I think deep down he was kind of down to continue doing the show. But I think between Curly and I, and I'm kind of speaking for Curly here, but too, and he's in the chat, maybe he'll say something. But I think him and I were just kind of ready to just move on to new, greener pastures, whatever those may be. And I'll get into that here in a little bit too. But with that said, I did promise at the very beginning of this little yap session that I would talk a little bit about FlyQuest. So, just for anyone who's ever watching this down the line, I know a lot of the people watching live right now are probably already aware of all this, but I got into FlyQuest back in 2019. The main reasons being Wild Turtle and Santorin. They were two players that I loved from the TSM days. So when they both got on the same team together, I was like, okay, let me see how they do. And they had that, I think it was spring, 2018 spring? No, sorry, 2019 spring. 2019 spring, because that's when I started being a fan. Duh. 2019 spring, they made that run to semifinals, taking Golden Guardians to that game 5, and like Santorin broke down in tears afterwards because he was so happy, and I just that moment cemented it for me, right? And then 2020 comes along. They still have Wild Turtle. They still have Santorin. They pick up Power of Evil, who was the Unicorns Love mid laner, who I loved Unicorns Love just because of the name, right? It's hard not to like. Plus, that team was fun to watch. You had Ignar, and then you had Viper in the top lane originally, but then you brought on Solo. Didn't really care too much either way about that. But in general, I liked the team, right? And then you had Mashme, who was original AD carry for Good Game University back in like season 3, if I'm remembering right. So he was a guy that I was well aware of, right? And then Curry is another coach who I kind of liked in general. So like 2020 was like, okay, this is an interesting year. Looks kind of fun. We'll see how it goes. COVID hit and the lockdown happened. It was like, and this is like where I really want to emphasize. COVID was a big proponent for me wanting to get into the league scene because I was locked in a house all day. I didn't have anything to do. I watched League of Legends all day. That's all I did was league. And then very easy when you have a team that you have a bunch of players that you like, and on top of that, they make the Cinderella run to Worlds, almost winning the grand finals. Like it's just, I was like, how do you not become a fan? How do you not become a fan? The storyline, the world at the time, it was the perfect Cinderella story. And it's just an absolute heartbreaker that due to COVID, FlyQuest and the ownership at the time basically were like, we can't afford to keep any of these players. We can't do it. And they had to restart over in 2021 because like I feel like the actual fandom that they had created during that 2020 run, just due to like all the factors that were happening at that time, and I'm gonna quote Nick Fan on this, but he was ready to create a dynasty off of that team. And it's to this day one of the biggest what ifs in my mind for the league scene in North America. Because like what if, right? What if that team had stuck together? What if they had continued to get better? What if there had been more funds given FlyQuest's way to get like better coaching staff, psychologists, whatever? What if that team had stayed together long enough for them to get back in the studio? There's so many things, man. Like what if? And so instead what ends up happening is 2021 comes around and Trish is now the CEO and she's just this wonderful, wholesome, happy-go-lucky little Vietnamese woman, right? And it's just like everything's cute. We're doing quests. We're doing charity drives. So what's not to like? What is not to like? And I remember during this time frame, it's like the team was not doing good because unfortunately it was just like you had to put something together, right? Like the team completely imploded because of lack of funds, and you just had to. Nick Fan was forced to throw something together. It wasn't good. The coach was not good, so on and so forth. It sucked because the team wasn't doing good, but like the actual management, I thought was doing a great job of building a fandom, and that was when I had started creating articles. I was writing articles. I was doing analytics. I had a whole post on Jose Diota, which if you go to the FlyQuest subreddit, actually for shits and giggles, let's see. It's probably still there. It's still there, I bet. I bet it's still at the very top. Let's see. Or not at the very top, but it's like, it's up there. Yep. Still one of the top posts I've ever made. Uh, I did a whole deep dive onto Jose Dioto and his 37 games in LLA at the time, and basically did a whole thing on like why I think he could be okay with Palafox and what to expect and how they should play together, so on and so forth. Um, but I was making a bunch of articles like that, right? Um, and I was just super invested, and that was the day where actually for also shits and giggles, let's see if I can find the original post. Actually, no, I shouldn't do this because this is what exactly what the last podcast is going to be for. So never mind. Point is, like, I reached out. Curly responded, Sandy responded. The show started, and it was everything that I wanted, right? And it was like we had created a show, we created a little community, we got the Flight Check Discord going up, and it was just everything was fun, everything was happy, everything was like easy going outside of the fact that the team sucked, but that was fine. It's fun. It can be fun to cheer for teams that suck, right? Because you get to watch them build up and get better and better, which is exactly what 2022 turned into be, right? Like Nick Van got some improvements. He brought in Johnson. He brought in Takui. He brought in Jose Dioto, and it was like, okay, like this looks like we could kind of build something off of this because you got time to actually like scout and like build a team instead of being forced to blow everything up in under a month and then build a new team in a month before LCS started. So it was actually like a team that was fun to cheer for, and it was like, okay, this can really be like the start of like the basic block. And then come 2023, it was like we can like pick and pull some pieces here. Like we needed to fix top lane because let's be honest, Kumo was not a great option for top lane. But it was like stuff like that, right? That was just it was fun to watch, and like everyone was happy, everyone was good. The quests were going great, and I would say the general sentiment, like whether it be on Reddit, Twitter, or Discord, was just FlyQuest was everyone's number two team, right? You could not like them. You may like another team more because they were always your fan from the very beginning, but everyone liked FlyQuest. Everyone liked FlyQuest, and it felt good to be like a fan of the team because it was just they felt like they were doing everything right, albeit a little bit slowly sometimes, but they felt like they were doing everything right. And I really also want to emphasize that there was a bit of a parasocial factor with this too. And I get it, parasocialness is kind of bad, but that early FlyQuest family during like 2020, 2021 with like Gray and Nick Fan, Trisha, Holy Guacajole, Massey, Drek, um, Fiend, all the old staff, like they did events together. They did bear cups. They would do late night ARAMs with like the actual fans. They would just hop into the fan like the actual FlyQuest Discord. They were just let's do some ARAMs. Let's go play some League. They'd have like game nights. Um, they were actually like on the ground doing work building fans. And so when I started the show with Curly and Sandy, and I'm like reaching out like, hey, can I just like get opinions? Can I get like almost do little interviews? And I Nick Fan basically reached out into because at the time I became a moderator because of Drek. Nick Fan reached out to me and was like, "Hey man, would you like? Oh, good, yeah, great shout, Lee. Tricky, I cannot forget Tricky. Tricky was awesome too. But Nick Fan reached out to me and was like, "Hey man, like I see you're doing interviews and I think it's awesome. You should have me on the show." And I just like the fact that he reached out to me, like just I love that. That's all I'm gonna say. I just love that. It made it so easy. Um, and so that was all 21, 22. And then, unfortunately, we get to the Viola era. With the end of the Milwaukee Bucks. The Milwaukee Bucks win the NBA championship, and then it's like all downhill from there, right? I'm gonna blame the Milwaukee Bucks winning the NBA championship for the downfall of FlyQuest. That's what I'm gonna blame it on. Yeah. So 2023 hits. Milwaukee Bucks give up their share of ownership of FlyQuest. The Viola family comes in and they make a decision to bring on a new chief gaming officer. And you all would know that man as Papa Smithy. I'm trying to think how much I should really say here because I don't really want to start too much drama. But let's just leave it at Nick Fan and Papa Smithy were not really fans of each other, is how I will put it. And this was like before the transfer even happened. This was before the Viola family, like it was even in discussions to take over FlyQuest. Like this was an behind the scenes interview after the interview was done. Like when we used to interview Nick Fan for the show, like Nick Fan after the show had been done, we were just shooting the shit. He was kind of giving us behind the scenes like sneak peeks of stuff that was going on, and we got on the topic of 100 Thieves, and Nick Fan made it clear he was not a fan of Papa Smithy, and Papa Smithy in general was not a fan of Nick Fan. This is how I will leave it at. So lo and behold, Papa Smithy's leaving 100 Thieves, and the Viola family makes the decision to bring him on as chief gaming officer. And so that's kind of where problems started a little bit. And you never really saw this in any of like the public facing stuff, right? Again, I'm trying to figure out what I should and shouldn't say because I'm really not trying to start too much drama, but I want people to understand like things started kind of going wrong a little bit. Um, I will, you know what? I'll focus more back on me a little bit. Let's do that. So my one and only fault I ever had with Nick Fan was 2023 came about, the Viola family came in, and it was just suddenly like, hey man, here's a lot of money. Here's a lot of money. And for Nick Fan, who had been the GM of this org since 2018, like he never had money. He never had money. Like he did not have the opportunity to really spend on trying to get a good roster together. Like everything he did, he was effectively moneyballing, right? Like even that 2020 roster, that was a cheap ass roster. That was a roster that was not expected to make it to second place in both splits, and this magical awesome run that they had, even though they didn't make it to quarterfinals, but this awesome Group D run that they had at Worlds, right? That was never expected of that roster. He did everything basically moneyballing and just trying to pull together what he could. So 2023 comes along, and it's the first time he actually has access to funds and resources. And so immediately, I mean, like, there was the rumor, and it fell through, but he immediately tried going for Junja, who, look where Junja is at right now. He ended up acquiring Prince, who was this up and coming 80 carryover in Korea. He ended up acquiring Vikla. He ended up getting Impact. He ended up getting Vulcan. And he ended up getting Spica. This, like, for all intents and purposes, like, it was a super team, right? It was just completely Bud Light aced the original 2022 team, which was frustrating for me as a fan because I really thought it was like the building blocks of like, okay, we're going to build from here. And like we had Aframu, who I thought was someone that you could really build around and continue to build around. I thought Takui was someone that you could continue to work with because I was like, man, just teach the man Silas. I thought if you could teach the man Silas, he could actually be a decent mid laner. Um, I agreed that Jose Dioto wasn't working out at the time. He probably needed to go. Top lane was not working out. He probably needed to go. I was kind of wishy-washy on what Johnson was going to do because, like, he had some good moments. He had some bad moments. It was like if we wanted to get a new 80 carry on that front, I was kind of okay with it. But the fact that we Bud Light aced that whole team, that felt bad to me because it was also the third year in a row at that point where we had Bud Light aced the team. Like 2020 gone, 2021 gone, 2022 gone. It's hard to keep a fandom if all your players keep disappearing, right? And I mean, everyone back then. Oh, you're right, Curly. It was Ayla and Winston in 2022. Or no, 2023. Ayla Winston was 2023. You're right. It was not Vulcan. Vulcan was summer 2023. But yeah, no, you're right. Yeah. Either way, the point being is that you can't build a fandom if you keep replacing all your players. Um, and so that felt bad. And then obviously the team had this massive collapse too. And then unfortunately this was also around the exact same time going like they had the collapse at the end of spring. They lost to Golden Guardians, and the Golden Guardians and Cloud9 went to MSI, and it was just like it was just a big old crash out, right? And then you had also the massive drama that was going on for NACL at the time, in which case all the teams basically said we do not want to pay for academy rosters anymore. We're done paying. And so there was this whole strike. The LCS went on strike in order to go to bat for all these academy players that were no longer getting paid. And I'm not going to go into it, but those of you who know, you know. I made a tweet during that time frame due to things that I was hearing, and I had to walk back that tweet. And I to this day I regret making that tweet, but I caused a massive problem. I caused a massive problem for FlyQuest behind the scenes, and most of you probably will not ever know how big of a deal it was. And then, yeah, I guess, yeah, just shout out to Nick Fan. Even to this day, I've talked to him behind the scenes afterwards, and to this day, I'm still sorry. Just know that I'm still sorry. That's all that it is. But basically, I caused some real shit to happen behind the scenes for FlyQuest during that time frame, and that was basically the end for the original FlyQuest as we knew it. I'm not saying that it was me, obviously. There was far other shit going on, but I caused some shit to happen, and I feel bad about that. But going forward, at any point, the vibes of FlyQuest had kind of changed, and decisions and management behind the scenes coming into 2024. Nick Fan leaves. A lot of the old staff leave. They're pretty much all gone. Trisha's obviously on Cloud9 at this point. Yeah, basically by 2024, there's no one from the old Fly staff that are there anymore. The one that felt like a family, the one that was doing the groundwork, the one that was really like building the community themselves, that felt like a family, like everyone's having fun, everyone's being wholesome, everyone just feels good. Because that's what that community was. Everyone's just like, you want to come in here, have a good time, and you're having fun, and you're not harping on other people. You're not being you're not being a TSM fan at the time, because TSM fans love to just pick on everyone. Like, it was just like, hey, no matter who you support, like, we're here to hang out with you and have a good time. That's what it was. Come 2024, all those staff are gone, and it's a new era of FlyQuest, because I would say you had the 2017-2018 era of FlyQuest, which was one era. That was the Cloud9 Eclipse, Cloud9 Challengers roster, effectively. That's what it was. Then you had 2019 through 2020, the Snickers era of FlyQuest, if you will. Just them trying to survive and Nick Fan moneyballing it. And then I think you had 2020 through 2022, which was this wholesome quest org of let's have fun, let's build a happy community, everything feels good, everything's great. Maybe one day we'll start winning and that'll make everything the best possible. And then I would say 2023 was a transition year of the Violas coming in, and then since you've had the Papa Smithy era, I would say, the Viola family era. And I think my big struggle with this era has been FlyQuest does not know how to brand themselves. They went from an org that did all this awesome, fun, charity-driven, quest-driven, like positive mental attitude stuff, to like you had staff who were still behind the scenes that wanted to push for that kind of stuff, but that was not what upper management wanted to go for. And then you had them bringing in like Dash and Obli, and it's just like, let's just get big names, let's get the numbers pumping, and it doesn't matter how much we pay them, because I've never heard an actual number confirmation of how much Obli was getting paid, but it was far more than she should have ever been paid. Respect to Obli, I love her, and the girl does deserve to get paid, but the number she was getting paid for what she was doing, way too much. But yeah, it just felt like, it just felt corporatized is how I want to put it. It felt super corporatized. And it was a real struggle for me to continue to want to stay attached. And this is also right around the era where my interest started to wane in FlyQuest a little bit. So yeah, 2024 comes along, and you do get that Magical Worlds run. The team does get their first ever LCS championship off of the Winions. I'm not gonna lie, that shit was hype. I loved that. It was great. You also brought on Masu, who was a guy that I had been following in the NACL OQs for quite a while, and I felt that even if it's like 0.1%, but I had 0.1% reason that he's on that team because I was the one who messaged Nick Fan about picking him up. I don't care. I'm claiming that 0.1%. I was involved. um, yeah, so there were still reasons to be a fan. There were still reasons that I wanted to follow the team, and there were still reasons for me to want to do the show and everything. But just as time continued to go on, my interests continued to wane, and then I'm not going to get into specifics, but there's been some real dark and dirty stuff going on behind the scenes for FlyQuest staff for various people. I the one thing I learned from that tweet that I made back in 2023 that got me into a lot of trouble was it's not my place to say these things if I don't have definitive proof, so I'm not going to say definitive things. But I can definitively say, because I do have definitive proof that things have happened. I just don't know exactly what they are. Like, I know what they are, but I don't exactly know what they are. But there's been some dark stuff that has happened for staff in the FlyQuest camp over the past year and a half or so. And you can see that and how a lot of staff have left over the course of this year. And that's all you need to know about it. So, and then even on like the back end, like that's just the back end stuff that people don't really know about. Like you still have the front end stuff. You have, I mean, again, not we're gonna talk about Jensen for a second here, but like as much as I don't like Jensen and like I think he was kind of a freeloading player in my opinion. The way he was treated was not really fair by like Inspired and Whippo and the rest of the staff, right? Like let's just call a spade a spade. Like how he was treated was not great. But yeah. Anyway, yeah. I mean, you still have Inspired, kind of just like Inspired's personality, especially in this world. I mean, it's hard to be a fan. You can be a fan of Inspired's gameplay. He's like, I don't like. Let's just talk objectively. The man's the best jungler in the West right now, straight up. Like no one else is even close to him. When he's playing at his best, he's the best jungler in the West, straight up. Um, so you can be a fan of his gameplay. It is super hard to be a fan of Inspired himself. Like, what is there to be a fan of about Inspired himself? The dude's just kind of a dick in general. And then Whippo is just a manic mess. Like, he has a great personality when he's not spewing random shit, but that's also because he's kind of manic in a sense too, right? Um, so it's hard to be a fan of Whippo, I would say, because he's so just all over the place and like he says random shit and that he obviously shouldn't be saying that just is not good, and it gets the organ in trouble, it gets him into trouble, it ruins vibes, so on and so forth. And then I mean, on like the less big end, like you have Nuke Duck saying things, you have like words that he shouldn't be saying that like you're getting leaked on interviews. It's like you probably shouldn't be talking like that. Not that it's like career ending or anything. It's just like it's not a good look for you kind of stuff. You had the whole Richard debacle, which um, yeah, I don't know. It felt like there was just controversy after controversy after controversy for FlyQuest. It's so hard to be a fan of the team right now. Like it feels like the moment this team stops winning, which let's be honest, like coming in this offseason and how things are going, they may not be winning much going forward. We'll see. FlyQuest has the money to buy people that they want to buy, but like they may not be winning like they used to the past 2 years. So if they stop winning, like I would not be shocked to see this fandom just like drop off a cliff. Everyone's a fan because of like the Gen G series last year and how dominant they were throughout this year. But if they stop winning, like why do you want to be a fan of FlyQuest? If someone can answer that for me, I'll happily listen. But I don't know why you should be a fan right now. Like outside of like Masu and Lucio, like you can be a fan of the individual players, but as an of the org itself, why do you want to be a fan of FlyQuest? That's kind of how I'm asking. Yeah. Anyway, uh, I think that's about it, honestly. Um, I guess my last kind of thing, this is just kind of a random tangent, is hard hard to disagree with Inspire. The man can play, but it's obvious sometimes that he is a little too aware of how good he is and how much power that gives him. Yeah. What was the Richard thing? Richard was the assistant coach back in 2024 before Mithy came in which case it was very awkward because Sandy Curley and I actually had an interview that we did with Nuke Duck and him, and then a week later, it came out that he had been messaging underage teenage boys online and pretending to be a teenage boy himself when he was like a mid-20s like dude. Not good. That's who Richard was. Yeah, it was just bad, bad. Um, yeah. Anyway, I think my last random thought, random tangent thing I want to say is just as an interesting fun fact is I was really trying to get into the esports scene and get like a job in the esports scene. I was really trying to specifically for the longest time I was trying to do a community manager position because I thought that was probably the easiest way to get in, and I thought I was great at being a community manager. I was being a moderator for FlightQuest. I had a whole community for Flight Check. I thought I could really try and build something online and really like be helpful to an org somewhere out there. I was low-key hoping to do it for FlyQuest, especially because Drek had left. And then Sonica kind of came in and was like, oh, okay. And that was kind of when it, like my ability or my realization of like being able to work in the esports scene was killed because they got rid of Drek, who at the time lived in Canada. Um, they got rid of him because they wanted someone on scene. They wanted someone actually in LA to do all this stuff, and so they brought in Sonica. In which case, I was like, oh, okay, this is clearly not ever going to happen then because I'm not willing to move to LA. I don't ever want to live in LA. That shit is way too expensive. And the esports scene was going through its esports winter bubble, and it was just like, there's no way I'm ever going to make enough money doing this. So it just sucked. Which, yeah, I think I do want to give a quick shout out also to Drek. I'll make sure to tag him or I'll talk about him more on the actual final show. But just big shout out to Drek. He was pretty much the original person who got the show started. He was the one that really helped me like get things going and ready for Flight Check and helped us make a Discord community and helped us understand what to do, the expectations, and all this while being the FlyQuest community manager at the time. Just big shout out to Drek. If you ever listen to this, Drek, you and I need to actually chat more. I haven't talked to you enough. Big shout out to Sonica. I've met her the past couple times that I went to New Jersey. I met her here in Dallas. Just an awesome woman. If y'all ever see her again, whenever she starts streaming again, I think she told us that she was going to stream sometime this winter. Go check her stream out. Go hang out with her. She's just a wonderful person. I do got to give a shout out to Numi. She was put into an interesting position coming in and taking over Sonica's position, and she handled it well. I think she was pushed to do a lot of things that she necessarily didn't really want to do. Yeah. I think she's doing a lot better in wherever she's at now. So, yeah, just shout out to the community managers. The Dark Art, Defense Against the Dark Arts position of FlyQuest. Yeah. Again, shout out to Nick Fan, and then I'm going to save my shout outs for Curly and Sandy whenever we do the final show. Going forward, I think just little things, and I'll probably get into more detail in the final show, but like pickleball, house, wife, travel, other family event stuff. Yeah. So I think on that note, that's kind of it. I just wanted to vent a little bit. I wanted to bitch and complain a little bit because I really wanted to save the final show on November 17th, 2.5 weeks from now. Please be there. We're going to go down memory lane, look at some of the stupid things I've said, hit your head on the nail, stuff like that, random stuff. I think we're just going to go down memory lane a little bit and just hang out. It'll be a fun time. It'll be a good time. How is my ankle? I'm walking around on it. I don't have the brace on right now. If I'm not walking a lot, I'm kind of walking without it. If I'm going to be doing a lot of walking, I have a brace still. I think this coming week I'm going to see if I can start walking around like completely without it, unless I plan for like a long walk. And I think the week after that, I think I'm going to try and do some drills for pickleball. I'm going to try and get like back into pickleball. I'm not going to play any games. I'm not trying to run yet, but I want to get back into drilling, making sure I can hit properly. And then I think the week after that, I'll probably start trying to play games again. We'll go from there. Because I have some people that want to actually make a team with me at some point, and they were very frustrated that I decided to get injured right before they wanted to enter the tournament with me. So, oopsies. Um, I need to find I got them all clip. Oh, I don't even. Yeah, if anyone knows like any good clips off the top of their head and knows how to find them immediately, by all means, please send them myself, Curly, and Sandy's way. I will happily take them, and we'll make sure to like play them live on stream again. Um, it sucks because unfortunately for 4.5 years ago, man, we made an oopsies and we never saved that very first episode of Flight Check, so we only have the second episode ever. It's also very funny because like y'all aren't gonna remember it, but I was the host back then. It wasn't Sandy. I was the one trying to host the show, and it very became apparent that I was not a great host, and it was better for me to just yap about the things I want to yap about instead of trying to host what Curly and Sandy. So it worked out. I think Sandy swooped in and did exactly what he needed to do, so it worked out. Anyways, guys, I think that is about it. Um, I will not be on the show this Monday. I don't know if Curly and Sandy are going to run one or not. I think they need to talk amongst themselves. But I got free tickets to the Dallas Cowboys game versus the Arizona Cardinals. So I will not be here on Monday. I guess just because I'm already live and I can talk about it really, really fast. What the hell, man? KT beat Genji? Everyone decided not to believe in them, I guess. I mean, props. They won. It's exciting. KT in the World Finals. Hopefully we can get a telecom war. That'd be sick. Outside of that, quarters pretty much exactly went to chalk. I did predict anyone's legend to beat T1. I really thought it was time for T1 to lose in the quarterfinals. I guess they decided it wasn't. Banger series, though. G2 was in the TES, not surprising. What were the other quarterfinals? Gen G beat. Man, why can I not remember what the quarterfinals were? What were the quarterfinals? Oh yeah, Gen G versus HLE. That wasn't too surprising for me. It's funny that they end up losing to KT afterwards, and then I was a little sad that KT did not beat, or CFO could not put up more of a fight versus KT, but it is what it is. I think my final thoughts are going into 2023. I was excited for a new Worlds format. And then after we got like the same region matchups and whatnot, obviously they made the adjustments. It was like, okay, we'll give it another try. And I thought it was better. And I think after this year, I think I've come to the conclusion I actually don't like Swiss format that much. I think there needs to be a different format for the group stage. And as much as I will sit here and argue that I would love to have like a double elimination bracket phase for like the playoffs or whatever, I understand that like a lot of people love seeing like, hey, Worlds is meant to just crown the best team in the world, and so like I'm not gonna push like having double elimination too much. But I do think the current way that teams are getting into the bracket stage right now are not consistent, and it is not representative of team strengths, and it's not seeding teams properly going into the playoff stage. And so I actually think Swiss stage probably needs to go in one way or another. That or you need to put best of threes across the entire board of Swiss stage. That's probably my one thing is you can't have best of one whatsoever because then you get wonky. Like I love the fact that 100 Thieves took a game off BLG. That's awesome, but let's be honest. Like I think if you give BLG 2 more games, they probably clean up there, right? And it probably puts them into a 1-0 bracket, and you get a whole different format. So I really don't think. And I mean, even same for T1 versus CFO, right? Like that may be a whole different series, and I think that would be an awesome series if we got actually a best of 3 out of that. So I think Riot needs to do something different with Swiss Stage, whether it needs to be best of 3s across the entirety of the board, or you do a whole different format in general. I'm personally a big proponent of two groups of how many teams are there? 16. Two groups of 8, and then everyone plays best of threes against each other for that group, and then you cross conference it. The top 4 play like seed 4 in Group B plays seed 1 in Group A. That's how I think it should be, but I also understand that would take a lot of time. Anyway, guys, I'm just yapping at this point, which I know is the whole point of the show or the whole NoxTalks, but it was meant to be like a little complaint thread. Just get all the bad juju out of the way before we wrap up the show on the 17th. So, with that said, thank you all for tuning in. I'm going to go do laundry for the rest of the day because we haven't done laundry since I got back from Nashville. And then we were supposed to watch Weapons last night, so I think Joss and I are gonna watch Weapons. So I'll talk about that later. So anyway, guys, thank you for tuning in. Appreciate y'all. I will see you all around. Sandy and Curly may or may not be doing a show on Monday. We'll see. They'll tweet about it. You will next see me discussing World Finals and how Worlds was overall on the 10th of November. That'll be our last normal show, is the 10th of November. And then the 17th, we will have our final show. So anyways, guys, have a good weekend.